Alright, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how Groundhog Day is real and that we're all living in it. And it's just one of those things that honestly, that occurred to me was that a lot of us, if not most of us, if not all of us, tend to do the same thing every single day. And then again, too, when the weekend finally arrives, we tend to do the same thing. And in some cases, if somebody is financially independent, they're wealthy, this monotony could be quite enjoyable. But for most of us aren't wealthy. Most of us, even if we make somewhat of a comfortable living, do have say financial instabilities. We can't just do whatever we want. We have to think about renovations. We have to think about replacing things in our vehicles, replacing the vehicle itself, and so forth. And so this mindset of doing the same thing over and over and over again and no sense of looking forward in life, to me, is what leads to a lot of poor decisions. And I think that, the reason why I'm bringing this up and its relevancy to mental health is that I do feel like the root of all bad decisions is mental health. And so that's one of the things I want to discuss, is just to be mindful of your role in your world of Groundhog Day. And that's the thing, is that it's very important too, and I think that that's one of the things that really bites us in the butt, is that unlike in the movie with Bill Murray, our Groundhog Day does have consequences if you go outside the lines. We don't get to just do stuff, not have consequences, and then we get a clean start the next day. We actually have to live with the poor decisions and bad decisions that we make. And so again, I think that that's why we make so many bad decisions, is that we're trying to break away from that constant, dreary life. We want to break away from our poor routines. And it's one of those things where obviously we can do that, but a lot of us have a hard time finding time to do that. A lot of us have a hard time thinking, where do we start? Because so much of our lives is just kind of this monotonous, dragging on routine. And, from my situation, I have a bunch of kids. And so it's really hard for me to be motivated, especially to trying to combat my own mental health with the traumatic events that have happened in my life. And then in the uncertainty of the life around us and the world around us, with everything changing in such a drastic scale, where that was one of the things that got me with the pandemic, was that when you were all stuck indoors for weeks and weeks and weeks, and there was a certain level of it felt like it was going to go on forever. And then now with the increase in outbreaks and so forth, they're talking about, maybe locking down again for an extended period of time. And so again, I think it's just very important to be mindful of how that impacts us, rather than simply just allowing it to happen. Because that's one thing I learned in life, was that tragedy will strike. It's just a matter of, are you prepared? Or in some cases, that's one of the things that I did, was that I want to say I was too prepared in some manners. I was constantly thinking about the what ifs. I was constantly trying to find the next traumatic event that was going to happen in my life. And so I really missed out on being present. So again, it's about keeping balance. It's about being prepared, but not also, spending all of your seconds trying to prepare. And so I think it's just a matter of being realistic on what we can do. And again, too, simply trying to slowly improve our lives with that monotony, with that Groundhog Day situation. Because like I said, I think that's what leads to people making extremely poor decisions. It's just a matter of feeling like you're on a treadmill and you're not getting anywhere. You keep walking and walking and walking and walking, and you look to your side, your left and your right, and you're nowhere further than you were a month ago or a year ago or 5 years ago. And so again, there's this just innate desire to break away from that, to get somewhere, and to be excited, to have something to look forward to. But a lot of times, like I said, is that we just kind of lose track of it. And then once we realize we haven't gotten anywhere, that's usually when people make those really poor decisions and compromise their lives. Whether it is their relationships with their spouse, with their children, with their immediate family, extended family, and friends. So many times when I see people making poor decisions, and when I've, honestly, had a moment of weakness where I've given into my frustration, a lot of times I've just realized that it's the circumstances I'm in that's making me lash out, rather than the actual event that took place. And again, it's just really important not to commit, a traumatic event within the lives of your loved ones. And then, because that's just another challenge you're going to have to get through, and that's just another thing that's going to weigh you down. So like I said, it's just important to make that distinction and realize that you're not alone in this constant state of doing the same thing every day. And it's just a matter of, slowly making the right decisions. For years and years, I worked out, I want to say religiously, into where it was just part of my life. And a few years ago, I had a couple of surgeries back to back. So I wasn't able to work out for a couple of months. And like I said, it's been like 2 or 3 years since I was regularly working out. And I felt myself getting into this funk. And that's what got me to commit to so many years of working out, was just me realizing that if I start today and then I do it tomorrow, in a year from now, I'm going to look back and realize that that commitment early on, that commitment just day after day after day, really paid off in the future. And so I think that's one of the tough things about, that mindset of a Groundhog Day, is we're all looking for immediate gratification. And that's a lot of times immediate gratification gives you long-term pain, long-term damage to your relationship in your life. And so, when you look at, like I was talking about with addictions and such, you just want to feel happy in the moment now. When you look at over-consuming food and such, again, it's just, I want to feel happy now. But that's one thing I realized, was that if I, say, invest in the future, if I sacrifice small happinesses now, small, I'll say not materialistic necessarily, but superficial happinesses now, in the long run, I'm going to be much, much happier. And I'm going to have a better version of Groundhog Day. Every day I'm going to wake up, and physically I'm just going to feel more energized. I'm going to feel more confident, comfortable with myself. And so again, that's really the thing, is that, like I said, a lot of us, just by nature, that is life, is that we're going to have routines. It's just a matter of whether or not you're going to develop good routines or let the bad routines take over. And again, the way that the bad routines take over is very subtly. It's not like you put on 50 pounds overnight. It's not like you become an alcoholic overnight. It's not like you have a drug problem overnight. It's just a matter of allowing your mind to be happy temporarily and superficially. And then that ends up just creating this really negative environment of a Groundhog Day. And so again, I just think that we really have to be mindful of these truths, because I've talked to so many people over the years, and they agree with that concept and that metaphor of us all living in that world where we do the same thing over and over and over again. Whether it's going to work, whether it's being a parent, you have to constantly clean a room, and then the next day it's dirty again. And so there's a very sense of, why am I trying if I'm not getting anywhere? And again, that's the thing that you have to be conscious of, is that you're not going to get anywhere if you just accept it as this, I won't say negative reality, but this thing that's constantly that never is going to change. And it will change, but like I said, it's not overnight. And again, too, it's like, if you are stuck in a Groundhog Day, wouldn't you want that better life to get to live over and over and over again? That positive environment around you, that you got to reap the benefits day after day after day? Or do you just want to live in the moment and try to make yourself happy immediately? And again, inevitably become miserable and have a really negative routine. And so that's something that, I just started today. I started working out again, because I realized that in a year from now, I'm going to look back and realize that I started investing in my future. I started investing in being happy in the long run and having a more positive routine. But again, it's just something that we need to be mindful of. And, again, I hope everyone's able to be mindful and self-reflect, especially with just the constant uncertainty in our lives right now. Just with the pandemic, it's still here, with social unrest, with social injustices and such, where it's very easy, I think, right now to be mentally brought down. And so again, I think for myself anyways, that's why I do a lot of self-reflecting, and I observe the behaviors of others. And it's really important not to judge the behaviors of others by our own perception, rather than just try to legitimately analyze, why are people making the decisions they're making. Because again, I see a lot of that. I see a lot of emotional pain coming out right now. And like I said, a lot of times I'd say it's not rational behavior. If you stood back, removed the personal experiences with it and just assess the behavior, I think a lot of us would realize that the extreme actions aren't honestly, they're not productive. They're not gonna evoke change. But at the same hand, too, I also think that if you look at it objectively from an emotional standpoint and realize if this was something that you were going through, if this was a pain that was true to you, and it seemed like the world around you didn't care, how would you feel? How would you, if you had a platform, would you shout with frustration and anger and sadness? Almost certainly. It's one of those things after my twin brother's death. That's how I felt extremely towards. I say the persons that were responsible for his death, for the at least from my own perception, the lack of appreciation from the country. And again, but that was one of the things that over time I started learning about my own pain and realizing those things. So I do think it's important for all of us to try to be more observant and more understanding. But as always, good luck and good night.